Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into something really fascinating. It's the idea of a powerful single being that's somehow beyond our physical world, but also deeply connected to it.
Right, a being that isn't limited by space or matter like we are.
Exactly. And we're digging into this using some excerpts from a text, one that explores this being's relationship with, everything.
Yeah, we mostly focus on the content from a PDF we found, even though there was a bit of a strange source trail initially.
Right, that Vimeo page was odd, but the PDF has the substance. So our goal here is to really unpack these complex ideas for you, the listener.
We want to understand what it means for something to be described as, abstracted from matter, but still be the source of everything.
Yeah, how can it be separate and connected? It's a unique way to think about reality, isn't it?
Definitely.
Okay, so let's dive in. The text introduces this concept, Zakia Aktes, the sacred being.
That's it. And it uses these really strong terms, muserd ve muala, which means abstracted and exalted from matter, basically totally beyond it.
And also munetse ve muber, pure and free, specifically from things like being recorded or limited by physical density.
Yeah, it's setting up a being that operates outside the physical rules we know. A pretty mind-bending start, like you said.
It really is. And then it says, this being is the source of all light. Umaman varavashu betun nuranyat onun and varo kutsiei esmayesinin kesif bir gurgesi veslari.
Right, which translates roughly to, all lights and luminosities are like a dense shadow or reflection of the sacred lights of his names.
A shadow. So our light is just a dimmer version of this original light.
Kind of, yeah. It's suggesting a hierarchy. Like a reality's light is just an echo, a less intense version of this ultimate sacred source. It's a powerful metaphor.
Okay. And it doesn't stop at light, does it? It says, bitun hayat ve'alami aba ve'alami bersa ve'alami misal nim shafaf birer ayani chamali.
Exactly. So all existence, life itself, the realm of spirits, the intermediate realm, even the realm of images, they're all like semi-transparent mirrors of his beauty.
Semi-transparent mirrors. So not perfect reflections.
Apparently not. Maybe slightly clouded, each showing a different facet, maybe a little distorted, but all reflecting the same source of beauty.
Okay, I think I'm getting that. Everything reflects this one being.
Right. And this being is described with attributes that are sifatyu muhita, encompassing attributes, not limited.
Encompassing.
Yeah.
Meaning they apply everywhere, to everything.
Pretty much. And managing sunatu kulia, universal affairs.
Yeah.
All of this happens through Yerde Kuli, universal will.
A will that governs everything.
And Kudriti Mutlaka, absolute power, no limits. And finally, Ilmi Fuhit, all-encompassing knowledge, nothing hidden.
Wow, that's total. Absolutely boundless. It really paints a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then the text just lays out these questions, doesn't it? Like, Hangi she saklana bilir, can anything be hidden? Hangi isho ona ashir gilabilir, any task too hard.
Yeah, it keeps going. Hangi on den gizlen nebilir. Any place concealed. Hangi fert ondan uzak kalabilir. Any individual distant.
Right. His ishan the dislanabilirmi. Can things be hidden? His spirish birishamani olormo. Does one task prevent another? His shabirier onon huzrundan hali kalermu. Can any place lack his presence?
And the answer to all of them is clearly meant to be no.
Absolutely not. It's hammering home this idea of total presence, total capability. Nothing is impossible or hidden.
Exactly. It sets the stage perfectly for the next idea, which is about constant observation. There's a quote mentioned attributed to Ibn Abbas.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It says, her bir mevkuda bakar bir, manavi basari veishitir bir manavi semi.
Okay, let's break that down. Every being is regarded with a spiritual sight and heard with a spiritual hearing.
That's the gist. It's not just a general awareness, but a specific individual attention paid to every single part of creation.
Individual attention. Yeah, okay. The text connects this to ihadiyat, right? Uniqueness. How's that different from Vaidiyat, oneness? That distinction seems important.
It is important, yeah. So Vahidya is more about the universal manifestation. Think of God's power acting across the whole universe, like, say, the laws of physics applying everywhere. That's oneness in action, all-encompassing.
Okay, like the sun shining on the whole world.
Exactly. That's a good analogy for Vahidya. Now, Ihadiyat, that's about the unique individual focus within that oneness. It's the idea that this being gives specific direct attention to each individual thing, as if it were the only thing existing at that moment.
So like the sun's rays being focused by a magnifying glass onto one specific spot?
Precisely. That intense specific interaction is like Ihadiyat. Even though the source, the sun or God's power, is one and universal, the manifestation can be incredibly specific and individual. The text says attributes like hearing and seeing work this way too, both universally encompassing and individually focused.
So it's not just knowing about everything generally, but actually seeing and hearing each specific thing simultaneously. That's quite something.
It's a profound concept, yeah.
Which leads to that other sort of paradoxical question the text raises. Hispir yorda blumadiahand, her yorda blunmazman. Does he not exist everywhere even though he's in no place? That sounds contradictory.
It does, on the surface, you're right. But the text clarifies this. It says being in a place, ogoyen, that's a property of material things that take up space.
Ah, okay. So things like thoughts or mathematical truths, they don't have a physical location.
Exactly. They aren't in a place in that sense. So the text says God is menetze, free from place, from mocking.
Free from place.
And this connects to a quote they include from, I think it's the 20th letter. It says, Madem sani kadir mekanden menetze tir, elbet kujretile, her mekanda hazer sayler.
Okay, so since the all-powerful creator is free from place, he is certainly considered present everywhere through his power. So the presence isn't physical occupation, it's presence through power.
Exactly. And the quote continues, Baden techezi ve inkizam yoktur. Elbete hershei kashu bitun es masila mituechi olabile.
And since there is no division or fragmentation, he can certainly be directed with all his names towards everything. No division. That's key, isn't it? It means he isn't spread thin by being everywhere.
That seems to be the point. The fullness of his being, all his attributes, can be focused anywhere, everywhere, all at once, without diminishing. Think of maybe a radio signal. It's not in one spot, but its presence can be detected across a huge area through a receiver.
Right, the signal itself isn't divided up. Okay, that helps.
So this idea of presence through power leads into the role of the chain of beings, the natural laws. The text asks, Silsile isha ununeva mirve kanon laranan surat lecherian laranari biretel biredamar hukminegesh mizmi.
Does the chain of beings act as a thread, a vein for the flow of his commands and laws? So does that mean he needs this system? Like, does he need cause and effect to make things happen?
Ah, good question. The text seems to say no, not need in the sense of dependency. It's not a limitation on him. But these systems, these laws, they function as Bryrer Tel, Byrer Damar threads, veins for the, let's say, orderly and swift execution of his commands.
Okay, so they're like the wiring. The power source doesn't need the wires, but the wires allow the power to be distributed effectively and maybe elegantly.
That's a good way to put it. The text emphasizes that this structure reveals hikmet wisdom, and it's a way the divine names manifest. Esma Techelisi. It's about the purposefulness and beauty of the design, not a constraint on the designer.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's about showing wisdom through order, not being bound by that order. Got it.
Right. And finally, the text really drives home why material limitations just can't apply to this being.
Yeah, it lists all those characteristics of material things, right? Medillarin, mumkinlerin, things that are material, contingent, dense, numerous, bound, limited.
And it lists their key properties. Tegayur, change, to bedel, transformation, tahiyuz, occupying space, and techetsi, divisibility.
Can you quickly remind us what the text said those meant? Tagayur.
Sure, tagayur is like fundamental change, turning into something else entirely. The example given was wood burning and becoming heat and ash. It's not wood anymore.
Okay. And tibidol?
That's more like simple change, like changing location. The thing itself remains what it was, it just moved.
Right. Tahayuz is occupying space, taking up volume.
Yep. And techetsi is being divisible, breakable into parts.
And the text is saying these only apply to material contingent things.
Correct. These are features of our kind of reality.
Yeah.
And then it contrasts this sharply with the description of God.
Right, as vasibulvukud, the necessary being, whose existence is just necessary. It can't not exist.
Exactly. And Nurul Envar, light of lights. Vadidi Ehad, one and unique. Also, Kudun Munensa, free from limitations. Hudutun Mubera, pure from boundaries.
Kusardan Mukaris, holy from flaws. Noksandan Muala, exalted from deficiencies. It's a whole list defining something utterly different.
Absolutely. A being completely unlike contingent reality. Which is why these limitations change, division, location, just don't apply.
It leads to those final rhetorical questions, doesn't it? Ach Hisona Yakushurma. Does helplessness fit him at all?
And Kusur, Hison Damani Isitin Yanashuma. Does deficiency even approach his glory? Again, the implied answer is a clear no.
Of course, it's reinforcing that fundamental divide. Vasibhuvukud, the necessary being, versus Mumkun, the contingent beings, like us and the universe.
Right. Change, decay, ending. Those are properties of the contingent. They can exist or not exist. But for the necessary being, non-existence is impossible. It's eternally existent, unchanging in its essence.
Okay. So to sort of bring this all together, what we're seeing in this text is this really powerful idea of a being who is, on one hand, totally transcendent, completely beyond our material world and its rules.
Completely separate in essence.
But at the same time, incredibly intimately present, aware of every single detail, acting through this absolute power and knowledge.
Yeah, establishing the rules, but not bound by them.
And this core distinction between the necessary being Vasibhuvukud and everything else, which is contingent, possible, changeable, that seems central.
It really is. It's the foundation for understanding everything else the text talks about regarding his actions in relationship with creation. It offers, a framework for thinking about existence itself.
Definitely a framework. It tackles huge questions about causality, reality, the nature of a higher power. Balancing that transcendence and immanence is key.
And it's a challenging balance to grasp, but the text lays it out very deliberately.
So for you listening, maybe you're seeking a deeper understanding. We hope this exploration has given you some interesting perspectives to chew on.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff, but fascinating.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. If you really consider this idea being not limited by space or time or material properties at all, how might that change how you see your own connection to the universe?
Or the source of all the order we see around us.
What could it mean for how we perceive all the seemingly separate bits of reality if they all stem from and are sustained by something so fundamentally different yet present?
Lots to think about there.
Definitely. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.